Welcome back to another episode of Relatively Damaged Live. My name is Angela, and this is
Kat.
On the Monday segment of the show, Kat and I talk about things that we find interesting. We stream to Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and I don't know where else right now, but I'm sure it goes somewhere else. So today's topic is how to cope with struggle. And as most of you know, we almost always start with a quote. And today's quote is from Byron Katie. It says, "Other than what I'm thinking and believing right now, am I okay?" And while I'm still in the middle of my struggle, I have to say, other than what I'm thinking and believing when I'm thinking about that struggle, for crying out loud, I'm okay. And sometimes I'm mad about that.
And I too am okay. And sometimes I'm sad about that. When we were talking about this topic, and how we were, gonna kind of come at it today, I was thinking about all those times is when the struggle hit. Um, and when it's when it's a struggle and you know what's coming, you can kind of anticipate it. You can kind of make a game plan in a sense. Okay, this is what I have to do. This is what I have to think about, and it doesn't necessarily change those feelings that we may have about it, and it could be a good change. But there's always a struggle. I mean, you think of like weddings and getting a new job and retiring, whatever. And those people think, oh, those are happy occasions. Those are good things. But it's still a struggle to deal with them. And then there's the struggles that you don't see coming at you. Your spouse just ups and tells you they want to leave. Uh, you you get fired from your job, or you find out you're getting phased out. Um, you get bad medical news, other situations like that. And it kind of stops you in your tracks because you think you're everything's going okay, everything's good. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, what's that?
You get the smackdown, it feels like.
Exactly.
And I think that's literally what it feels like. Like you're walking along, and boom, you're down. You didn't
Mm-hmm.
like walking into a telephone pole, right? Like you didn't see it coming.
Or for those of us who live in the Midwest, slipping on a patch of ice.
It's so, but also, I mean, one of the things that I've been thinking about, because as we talked about last week, I am in the middle of a current struggle, is that before life was just that much more predictable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I loved thinking that life was going to do what I thought it was supposed to do. And then I was validated when it did, even though it was just predictable. Do you understand where I'm going with that?
Oh yeah, yeah. As you know, I got some bad news this week too, and what it is isn't really important for the conversation, but it was just like, whoa, what does this mean? How am
Mm.
I going to deal with this? And the interesting thing, when I immediately heard that, I got into my reactive patterns,
Mm-hmm.
which was to say, oh my God, so I can't sleep, I can't eat, I'm obsessed of the thoughts, I catastrophize. I'm going to all these places and just thinking, well, hell, just give up. And um, and that quote brought me back to it. Despite what I'm thinking and feeling, am I okay in this moment? And the truth of the matter was, I had to answer yes. I had to answer yes. And that enabled me to make that shift.
Mm.
That
And
shift
what
into
did that,
saying,
I was going to say, what did that feel like as you said it?
it felt like a lifeline. So to use an analogy, it was like I was drowning.
Mm-hmm.
All
Mm-hmm.
of a sudden, I was drowning. I was drowning in the negative feelings. I was drowning in feeling overwhelmed. I was drowning in not knowing what to do. Um, and it was the idea, just give it up. And but still, just like you struggle to breathe, you're always going to struggle, that autonomic reaction. Nobody wants to just, you know you make a conscious decision to let go. You don't
Mm-hmm.
just do it. The body wants to struggle. And so the mind wants to struggle too. The mind wants to, at least for me, wants to make sense of it all. And
Right.
so that was like a lifeline. Despite what
Mm-hmm.
you're thinking and feeling, are you okay in this moment? And that was that lifeline. Yes, I am okay in this moment. I'm here. I have my faculties. I have my body. I have my strength. And that was that lifeline to be able to pull myself and to say, yeah, okay. And to look past those feelings. Not to put them aside, but to feel them and realize that they're there, but I was still okay. It
Mm.
put them into perspective.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then I was able to think about it more rationally. I was able to accept the feelings, yet be able to say, okay, this is, it's okay that I feel this way, but I am okay. And it's going to be okay. Now I know, thinking about what I was going to do.
Yeah. And were you able to find joy once you did that? Like, I don't mean, and I use joy because to me it's different than happiness.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like this underlying sense of, okay, it's okay. I can find that peace and that joy now, even though I'm in the middle of things that disrupt my life.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Um, again, joy is one of those kind of loaded words, and it means a little different something to everybody. I was able more to find a serenity, a peace.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was able to realize, because a lot of times when I'm in that struggle, I don't feel loved. I don't feel a sense of belonging. I don't feel like
Mm.
I matter. And so to be able to get that within myself, first of all, but also get that affirmation from people I care about, and to say, I love you, I'm here for you,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that was very powerful, because oftentimes in that, the struggle in itself can be so isolating. Nobody understands what I'm going through. I'm all alone. And I know I go there so easily.
Mm. Like the thoughts, you mean? Like a
Yeah,
struggle is happening now. No one understands. I'm alone. All of those things, those unhelpful thought processes start rolling in.
right. And and being able to know that I was okay, and
Mm-hmm.
and then in the process of doing that, being affirmed that it's okay,
Yeah.
that I'm not alone, that there are other people with me in that struggle. Um, Even though they're not going through that same struggle,
Mm-hmm.
they're there with me. And that's huge. That's huge.
Yeah. Having that support But there's a quote that by Gina Lake that I think you might appreciate, because we are talking about like the thought processes and things that happen. And what she says is, no one likes a know-it-all, but that's what everyone's egoic mind is. The mind pretends to know things it doesn't know, and even things it can't know, because not knowing is I can never say that. I can say this word right. Anathema to it. Wanting to know something when it is impossible to is just one more way the ego struggles against life. Life is a mystery. There are many more things we don't know than we do. The ego doesn't like this, and its way of coping with that unpleasant fact is to pretend to know. Pretend to know when we don't is a lie, and it takes us away from the truth. We don't know. Wanting to know, trying to know, and pretending to know keep us tied to the egoic mind and out of touch with the alive, present moment that vibrates in wonderment. What will happen next? No one really knows.
Very, very true. Well, and to put it in, I mean, I love that quote. We've been sharing a lot of Gina Lake lately, because I know you've been reading that book. And we're, as always, you're always reading the book.
It's true.
The whole thing is the ego says everything's about me. Everything's about me. Everything's about me. And so, of course, it's not that the world is against you, but the reality is the world is not about you. The world is not
Right,
about
but
me. And things are going to happen. People are going to do what they're going to do.
yeah.
And they
It's
have their,
also very complex, though, because one of the things you said is, as soon you're in this struggle and you were able to connect with your support group around you and say, hey, I'm in this struggle, and we were able to, those of us that know what it is, were able to support you, right? And so I was talking with someone over the weekend who said, a lot of times people don't come in and share that they're actually going through a struggle because they think they need to do it on their own. Or, so that's where I'm saying there's that complexity. The world is not about me, and yet I need to go ask for help because this is what I'm going through. So that's and I think that can be very confusing.
oh yeah, because you go ask for help and you're not always going to get what you need. Um, you know, I, obviously I shared with my wife the struggle, and what I didn't realize, my egoic mind was, it's all about me. It's all about me. And then I get mad when she shared with other people what was going on. And I had to stop and say, wait a minute. She loves me. She cares about me. She wants what's best for me. If I'm struggling with something, then in turn, it's going to affect her. So why wouldn't my struggle have also be a struggle for her?
Yeah, I remember when I first learned that, um, or someone first brought that to mind for me, was on a podcast of a wife of a gentleman with cancer, and I cannot remember the title of the podcast right now, but it was so beautiful because I think it was the first time I realized that someone else's struggle becomes, even with my kids, when I think about it, when they're struggling, it becomes my struggle too, in a sense, because I want to help, I want to support, I want to this, and it does emotionally impact me.
Yeah.
Just like
And
mine do them, and I don't even realize it. As parents, we want to think we hide all these things from kids, but we don't. They know. They know.
oh yeah,
They pick
yeah.
up on it. I mean, I picked up on plenty as I was growing up.
Me too. Me too. And uh, yeah, and realizing that, I think for the first time, um, because being able to say, even despite what I'm feeling and what I'm going through, am I okay? And being able to answer yes not only opened up myself to those possibilities, but it also opened me up to what other people were feeling. Because if people care about me, they're going to want what's best for me. They're not going
Yeah.
to want to see me hurt or suffer, just as I do. When people I care about are hurting and suffering, yeah, I want to make it okay. And I mean, oftentimes I can't, but I can be there and I can listen
Yeah.
and uh, just let them know I love them and I'm here. And sometimes they might say, "Yes, I need this." You know, I need to talk, or can you come over and sit with me?
Mm.
Can you, go with me here so that I can deal with this situation? Um, Even though you can't deal with the situation, but you can be there for them. Um,
Yeah.
and
But
so
I'm also thinking of that as like the gift of receiving.
right. I mean, it's funny because there are people who love to get gifts, and I like to get gifts, but I get so much more out of giving a gift. Um, and not that I want to go on a tangent, but I hate the idea of giving gifts because it's a season. Oh, it's Christmas, we must exchange gifts. I hate that. If I want to get you a gift, it doesn't matter what time of year it is. I want to get you a gift because I love you. And that's my
Mm-hmm.
way of showing it. And I might see something or, think of something and I'm just like, yes, I want to get you this gift. Um, and that whole thing about gift giving, it's not just a physical gift, it's the gift of yourself,
Well,
of
yeah,
your
and when
presence. Yeah.
by
I'm getting
sharing
teary
that
eyed again.
struggle, I know, but by sharing that struggle, it like I feel wonderful when I get to support other people through their struggles. And so why would I take that away? Or what good does it do me to take that away from someone else to not, well, the way that Marshall B. Rosenberg puts it is, it's like being like Santa Claus and you go to the neighbor and ho ho ho, can I have some sugar? So that then the neighbor can give some sugar and they can feel good if they're able to give it in that moment. And we can feel good because we're able to finish our recipe or whatever it is, right? Like I think the same dynamic is here in that struggle when saying, "Hey, I am struggling and I need some support right now."
Well, and I think the problem is when we're in a struggle is that we feel vulnerable because usually the struggle is something has hurt us, you know? And it's not, because most people desire to fix things for other people. Like I wish I could fix your struggle. I know I cannot. It is impossible for me to fix your struggle, just as
Ditto.
it's yes, exactly. And so we can just be there for each other and be supportive and listen and you know and do that, and that's all we can. But when somebody comes in and tries to fix it, well, I lost my job. I don't know what I'm going to do. Oh, well, here, do this, 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 this. It's kind of like, ugh. You kind of feel like, no, 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 no. You know, people don't always know. I don't always know what the right thing to do is, and because I feel that way when people want to fix me, um, it has always led to me being very hesitant to share my struggles. Um,
Because you're afraid people are going to try to fix it instead of support you.
f- Fix it, try to support me, or uh, minimize what I'm feeling.
So, is it then more helpful to ask, if let's say I have some ideas if someone lost a job or whatever, like just because that was the way this part of it started. And I go in and say, would you like some ideas? Is that helpful to you in those situations?
That would be much more helpful, because what you're saying is rather than saying what I need to do, you're asking me what I need. And you're giving
Yeah.
me the options to say, yes, yes, I would love some help, or no, I just need someone to talk to.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine call, and they knew what I was going through, which was fantastic. But I think that out of their way of loving, they wanted to fix it, and they weren't finding the answers. And then I started picking up kind of on that panic, because it was just like the speedy talking, and then I almost started to take that on, even though they were trying to be helpful. They were doing the loving thing from their perspective, right? And I found myself having to I just had to be quiet and let them work through it. Because I think what happens sometimes too is people put themselves in our struggle, and being super empathetic, take it on almost as their own, which it is a beautiful giving thing to do, right? To put
Mm-hmm.
them, to really set themselves in my shoes or your shoes or wherever. And at the same time, without checking in to see where that person is at, it might not be helpful, because those things actually might re-trigger the injury, or the anxiety or the panic, instead of, hey, I want to check on you. How are you? What's going on? What can I help you with today?
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I just couldn't believe how triggered I was by that conversation, and I knew it was from love, and I was just like, wow, I never thought of that. How many times have I called someone and probably done the same thing?
Yeah. And, you know, um, classic definition of codependency right there. How many of us, have those tendencies to be codependent. And really, I mean, we kind of took a detour. How do we cope with the struggle? And but it's also, how do you help someone cope with the struggle? What is
Yeah.
really helpful? Um, and again, I can only speak from my perspective. I don't want people to tell me what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, Ask me, make
Mm-hmm.
me think it out for myself.
Mm. Sometimes I think it is helpful if somebody has idea, they check in with me, they have some ideas, that's fine. I just need to be given the space. A lot of times what will happen is someone is so certain they've solved my problem for me, and that then if I don't follow that instruction or do exactly what they think needs to be done in that moment, then I'm doing it wrong. And then it creates conflict over here. So now I've got my struggle, and on top of my struggle, I've got this conflict with other people.
Right. It's like
And
that's all you need is more crap
but
piled on,
you know,
to the crap that you're going through.
that's so true. But one of the things that I've learned, like even with the kids, especially because I think for me, my kids have taught me so much about who I am. And they are fantastic mirrors, as well as my friends and my mom and, the other people in my life, my siblings, um, is that they need to make that choice. Only they know what's best for their soul, or what their soul is calling them to. And is and the same goes for me, right? Like I'm the one who has to figure it out. And sometimes, even though we see the potential pitfalls of a way someone else needs to go, that is still their journey, and it's still a sacred journey. And I don't get to decide what that looks like. Um, like in other situations in my life, I other people don't want to do what I think, well, what the socially acceptable thing would be to do, or at least what I think. And the reality of it is, when I look at that, when I really dig deep into that underlying belief, who is it? Who is it with the struggle? It's me.
Hmm.
It's me. um, it's my belief that what other people should do and that it's the right thing to do, and when they don't do it, then I judge me. So I think we just have to be really graceful and giving, and open to the way other people solve their problems, because there are bigger things at work here, and I can't. If I don't always have the right answer for me, how can I expect to have the right answer for somebody else?
It's so much easier to fix other people's lives than our own.
It is so much easier.
Because we have no skin in the game. We
It's
really
true.
don't. We really don't. We really cannot walk a mile in someone else's shoes.
No, I think we can try and we can empathize,
Yeah.
and
Well,
we still have to give them that room to be them.
right. Something just kind of occurred to me, and it goes both ways for yourself and for other people, with the struggles they're going through. And I think the idea of giving space is huge. When when I first got this news, there was no space. It I use the drowning analogy. You could just as easily use that constriction analogy. I can't
Mm-hmm.
I can't breathe. I'm being constricted. And um because my mind and my feelings didn't allow for any other possibilities. And just using that quote, saying, despite what you're feeling and thinking, are you okay? Allow that space to breathe. Allow that space to look at it and not be constricted by those feelings. And so, I look at it too with helping someone else. They're going through their struggle. Rather than helping them through it, maybe just helping them have space. And if they don't know
Like,
how to give themselves space, ask the question.
so inquire, ask the question that allows them to think, to be in the present, is I think what you're saying.
Yes. To be in the present, to help them get over uh, uh, at the extent that they can, get past the feelings of being overwhelmed by whatever they're going through. The panic, you know. Oh, if I'm losing my job, I don't know where my next paycheck's going to come. I'm going to lose my house. Oh my God, I'm not going to be able to afford it. That's where the panic comes in a situation like that. Thinking about all the things that are going to go wrong instead of
Mm-hmm.
saying, okay, all right, what can you do? Yes, you're going to lose the job. Well, are you going to get severance pay? Are you eligible for unemployment?
Right, because
There
in
might
that
be.
panic, you can't even think about what those other things are, I think is where you're going, right?
Right, right. So it might be specific to that, or it might even be, to the question that we open the show with.
Mm-hmm.
Are you okay?
Yeah, other than what I'm thinking and believing right now, am I okay? I love that as the first question. And the reason I love that as the first question is because sometimes, I've heard people say get present, I remember interviewing, I think, with Sean Swarner, and he said, think of, five, what can you hear? What can you see? What can you feel? He had a list of things he went down to get back to that present moment. But there's something about, other than what I'm thinking and believing right now, am I okay? And Byron Katie talks a lot about that. And I love that question because, even when I'm panicking, I can say, okay, there's a white wall, there's a brown shelving unit, there's a desk. And I almost can panic about, like, I need to find five things. There's two ring lights, there's this, even though it's bringing me present, it's not calming the panic
Right.
down. and so I think actually what you're talking about is like what oh goodness, there's a Viktor Frankl, I think, talks about it in Man's Search for Meaning. Between stimulus and response, there is a space, and in that space is where the choice can be made. And then and Scott Carney talks a lot. He tries to figure out how to get a bigger wedge. He calls that space the wedge, so how can he put a bigger wedge in? So I think really ultimately is finding the tools that work for us. And we have talked about some great, really fantastic ideas, I think. And at the same time, we don't have the answers for you. We don't. We want to. We love you. Yes. But we don't.
Right. And in this moment, that's okay. The answers will come, as they will for you too.
Yeah.
And so it's living in that space and allowing that. So as long as we're not constricted by the struggle, I think we can find the space.
And really looking inside for what is the next best step. And every once in a while, I jokingly say, I'm going to follow my feet today. And try not to get my head into the middle of it, especially when I'm struggling. That's another tool. And I know we're over our 30 minutes, but I just thought, one more tool. Use it or not. It's totally up to you.
There are so many out there, but I like our tool that we introduced today. Thank you, Byron, Katie.
Yeah, and I think it's important. I'm really grateful that we're talking about struggles as we're walking through them. And, that's actually been a big help for me. And also, acknowledging that sometimes it's really hard to listen to those struggle stories, because it does feel like, I think if I would have come to you and said, everything's going to be fine, or you just need to listen to this podcast and you will be fine. That you probably would have been like, that is not supportive. Angela, leave me alone. Because I get it, at the very beginning and in those moments, it's like selling rainbows and butterflies, and they just, in those moments of panic and struggle, they don't exist. And we have to get to that place where we can breathe. That finally it might be okay to listen and to get some tools, or to see it, or to hear it, or whatever, or to even find some answers. And that's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
It is.
Okay. Did you have anything, closing thoughts before I close us out, Kat?
I think we're good.
Okay. So in full recognition that if you're in the middle of a struggle or the beginning of a struggle, you may not listen to the podcast. I'm still going to tell you where to find it in case you decide of your own free will that you want to listen to the podcast. So there is a Relatively Damaged live podcast. No, I'm sorry, not live podcast, recorded podcast on Apple, Spotify, and many more. And really, it does talk about how people overcame their struggle. And I really work hard to try and understand what they felt like in those struggles and how they got to hope. Everybody does it just a little bit differently, which is what I find fantastic. I usually ask for 3 tips or tools at the end of each interview, and surprisingly, they are not all the same. So I'm Angela, and this is Kat. I said your name this time.
That's fine. We'll see you next time.
There we go.